picture, you notice there are three possible gospels I can pick from. What I did is I kind of melded them together because they fit together, and it all makes sense, and that's really why I wanted to do it that way. It's a rubric in the prayer book that they don't know about, and the only reason I don't know about it is because I got it on my test. Visit the Christmas displays in your neighborhood, and you might learn an awful lot about what people actually think and feel and believe. It's the Christmas time of 1964, and I am a high school freshman. I am Riley and Lizzie's age. And I belong to the photography club because they made me do it. I didn't want to. I wanted to get a baseball team. They said I couldn't do that unless I was on the photography club. So I joined the photography club and learned a lot about myself, if nothing else. So this was our assignment during Christmas vacation. Go wandering around, go to the neighborhoods, and find Christmas displays on people's lawns. And then take 2 pictures of each display. Do one during the daytime, and then come back at night from the exact same spot and do the same shot. And then see, provided that there's lighting and whatnot, what do you see? What don't you see? What does it teach you? And I have to tell you, I learned a lot. And the only reason I'm remembering this is because as I'm cleaning out all of my mother's stuff and papers, she saved a report that I wrote about that particular, and this is like, this is an ancient document now, okay? I'm talking about over 50 years ago. And what I learned was that in the minds of most people, Mary is a blue-eyed blonde, who's usually in her mid-20s. And I defy you to find me a Palestinian woman who's a blue-eyed blonde. Mid-20s, not. Baby Jesus always looks like a 2 or 3-year-old. Always has fat cheeks like a little Italian kid. That Joseph and his shepherd are usually interchangeable because you can't tell them apart. And that actually works because at St. Paul's this past Christmas, I noticed only at the very last moment the Joseph piece was missing. So I grabbed the shepherd, and when it came time, when Joe read the story, and it came to Joseph, I put the, and the kid looked at me and said, but I said, go, just forget it. Most people only have 1 sheep, but you need 3 shepherds for 1 sheep. It's kind of like being a chaperone at a teenage dance, And then always you would find an angel leaning against a flagpole, looking lovingly at Santa Claus who has candy canes. Somehow that always gets wrapped up into the display. I don't know what that means. And then finally, and this is more important for today, always 3 guys in turbans. Okay? Always set up in a straight line, like they're factory workers in a Volkswagen factory, And all of them carrying something that looks like either a jewelry box, a golden football, or a silver sausage. That's essentially what you see in these displays. I'm remembering this from years back. If you try to read Matthew and Luke and try to read their stories about the birth of the Anointed One, you're going to get a headache because of all of the different images you get and all of the busyness you get. Exit the shepherds, enter the magi. Exit the angels, enter dreams. And what I didn't read today, as the story would end, exit Mary's lullaby and hear the sound of Rachel weeping for her children. Everyone agrees there's a lot of traveling that's associated with this child. Couple goes from Nazareth to Bethlehem. Shepherds go from the fields to a manger. The couple and their child will flee from Judah to Egypt. And the best one of all, 3 unknown persons will go from Persia to Palestine, all without a GPS or manifest. But what we do get in all of this is that within all of them a sense, an immeasurable sense of longing that leads them to follow something, to follow a light, to follow a star, to follow a call. They're called magi, and I use the word literally. I didn't say wise men. I didn't say kings. They are literally stargazers, and they are said to be wise. And of course, most of you know this, we get the English word magic from magi. If magic means something totally awesome, something that's unusual, something beyond what our expectations should allow us to see, then it is magic. So here on the second Sunday, the final Sunday of the Christmas season, and really the first Sunday of the new year, when many of you are probably still recovering from New Year's Eve, and from the promises I hope some of you made, I ask the question as you begin the new year, do you begin this here with a desire for God in your life? Do you want to stay in God's presence? Do you want to feel what you have felt if you were here during the wonderful, beautiful Christmas liturgies that we had? Is the longing for God at the beginning of the year something real? And are you ready to take the journey with Christ and to Christ? Or is it safer to stay put? You guys internments from Persia take a journey. Most do not. Are you ready to take a journey? Most will not. When you find this child, and this is the last time he will be referred to as a child until next Christmas. He's an adult. He's risen. He will make you uncomfortable. He will threaten your assumptions. Herod hears about the child, and all he can think about is holding on to his job. And I'll let the scholars debate the extent of whatever he did in that event we call the slaughter of the innocents. But we do know this about Herod. He was a monster. He killed one of his own wives. He killed two of his own children. He was more than capable of doing all the things the scriptures say about him. Herod was the one person the Roman emperor said it was better to be his pig than his child, because as a Jew, Herod wouldn't kill his pig or eat it. He couldn't say the same about what Herod would do to his son. That's what he was like. The baby will grow up and will preach an ethic which will make people uncomfortable, because he will call for his followers to love one another unconditionally, to love their God unconditionally. He will preach forgiveness for those who hurt you 70 times, 7 times. Great. He will talk about hospitality to the marginalized. And if you take him seriously, you may end up like his first disciples. You may end up being rejected, made fun of, or even worse, killed. So we end the Christmas season and we begin this year with a call to a journey. So listen to the child who will grow up to become a prophet, and more than a prophet, who is literally God among us, Emmanuel. So as you start this journey in 2015, ask yourself some questions. What can I do differently? What can I really do differently to show that I'm on the journey, I take it seriously? And I just throw out some ideas. Think about it. Every time you spend money, ask yourself, is there someone in need who might need this more than me? And if so, what can I do about it? Or is it just a feeling? Speaking of spending, how about spending time? How much time do you spend, first and foremost, with yourself? In terms of growth, in terms of reflection, in terms of your relationship with God? How much time do you spend with others, with your family? I end a vestry meeting every time, and I know people don't pay attention to it because they kind of blow off, but you might remember, what do I usually say to you? Go home to the people who love you. All right? There's a reason I say that. Okay? Spend time with the people who are family, because you don't know how much time you will have. Seek what is permanent. Don't worry so much about what is transitory. You know what? Even here, if the candles aren't lit properly, and if I don't read the right gospel, God is still praised. Seek what is permanent and what is important. And walk in love as Christ loves us. Be willing to walk in the light. Because ultimately, Christianity isn't just a matter of believing, it's a matter of a journey. It's a way, a willingness to travel. It's a direction that the Lord calls me to move. And guess what? If you take the journey seriously enough, you might just follow the star. Amen. Amen. Please turn to page 358.